There's a couple brand new Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with Zelda Breath of the Wild. And after 5 full years of that game being available and sold on the market, there are still brand new secrets being uncovered. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with Nintendo Switch Online and the reason why we can expect new updates to hit the service as soon as this evening. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different stories to get through today, and we have to kick it off with a conversation around Zelda Breath of the Wild, as clearly that game has been a staple success for the Nintendo Switch. It definitely helped propel the numbers of the Switch right out of the gate at launch, and it is by far and away the best-selling and most successful Zelda title ever, with of course the breakaway from the traditional linear style Zelda game into that giant open world experience that since has really hit the market. We've seen start a trend with many other franchises now trying to emulate that exact type of leap forward and into that open world environment, even to the point where there is a Breath of the Wild style type of trailer that we see now with major games like Sonic Frontiers, of course, having the over the shoulder pan. We even saw it with Pokemon Legends Arceus, and all of that clearly just really speaks to how monumental of a game Zelda Breath of the Wild is and how quality it is through and through. And the reason it is in the news today is actually because a user has uncovered a hidden detail or alternate cutscene, if you will, of the final memory that is played after you've collected the initial 12 memories. You then go on to find the 13th one, and apparently if you take a photo of a specific photo on your Sheikah slate, you can actually trigger an alternate animation from Link in this cutscene where he pulls out his Sheikah slate and looks at it before continuing on with the rest of the story cutscene. And it's one of those things that while on the surface it's not like you're revealing any kind of huge new lore or any kind of, you know, monumental change to the story, it is something that's kind of crazy that there is that amount of detail in this game that 5 full years in, this is just now surfacing and coming to light. And Game Explained did a video on it. I will have their video linked in the description down below in case you guys want to watch the entire thing, as well as the original user by the name of Big O Till You, who is a YouTuber as well, who actually uncovered this. So really cool stuff 5 years plus in. What does that mean for the detail and the work that we are going to see them put into Breath of the Wild 2? Well, it just gets me more hyped than ever to know that yes, this is the kind of intricacies that go into these type of modern day Zelda experiences that we have to look forward from Mr. Onuma and his whole team over there. And yes, while the delay announcement for Breath of the Wild 2 is very disappointing to a lot of fans, including myself, I have full faith that the game is going to be a masterpiece through and through. We will hopefully get it to launch in spring of 2023 like it is slated for now, and then even have DLC packs to look forward to in the future, as we did see them deliver 2 with Zelda Breath of the Wild, the original. So it got me hyped to see Zelda back in the headlines and to see that new secrets are still being uncovered in a 5-year plus old game now at this point, and definitely just serves as a reminder to me that us Zelda fans have a lot of reason to be hyped for early next year to finally be here when we can all finally get our hands on Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and see what they are planning in this particular game. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below where your hype level falls for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. What do you think about secrets and altered cutscenes still being uncovered that obviously took extra animation work from the team just now coming to light? And bonus question, share with me whether or not you're still off and on playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, the original, because I've kind of here recently started messing with the idea of going through the game from start to finish again while I build up my continued hype and anticipation for the sequel. So I want to hear from you guys on all things Zelda Breath of the Wild and the sequel in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with Nintendo Switch Online and some brand new updates that should be scheduled to hit the service later on this evening. Now, right now in the world of Nintendo news, there's not a whole lot going on because I feel like this is the calm before the storm with their June Direct being right around the corner. It is hard to believe, guys, but we are at the tail end of May right now, and we're going to be in June in the middle of next week. So yes, it is time to get hyped for a lot of future announcements from Nintendo. But one thing that does continue to receive incremental updates is, of course, their live paid subscription service, which is known as Nintendo Switch Online. And the reason that we are expecting updates to hit today is there is an account over on Twitter by the name of Nintendo Status Bot that essentially watches for any time maintenance is scheduled for any Nintendo Switch applications, whether it be existing games that are out, just general server maintenance to their online, or specific apps like NES and SNES. And of course, we did see late yesterday both the NES application and the SNES application are scheduled to be receiving maintenance on May 27th 11th, which is tomorrow. However, they use a strange time zone by what's called UTC, and that is actually 5 hours ahead of where I am at in Central Time. So if you do the math, you will actually see these games most likely launch late this evening. I'm expecting them to hit in the 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. window around here, and historically, just about without fail, every time we see this type of maintenance scheduled, it is always to add new games to the service. And you guys may remember recently on the channel, we actually discussed some leaked builds of the NES application that was out there, showcasing many different games that had at that point in time not been added to the service, some of which we have seen added, others we have not. And one very exciting series, and I'm not saying this is what this update will be, but I'm hopeful that it is that there was a lot of Mega Man games that were actually featured as part of that screenshot that was legitimately traced back to a developer build of that NES app. And maybe this is the window where we see some of those games added in. I do wish we had some kind of a roadmap or schedule for Nintendo Switch Online, so we knew we're getting, like, every other month we get 2 NES and 2 SNES games. Obviously it's going to be all sporadic. Maybe it's only 3 titles total, 2 of them are SNES and 1 of them are NES. Like, we've seen them do all types of different mix and matches, and it's really hard to predict what Nintendo is planning with this update. But the fact that we are now alternating 4 consoles somewhat regularly with updates between the Sega Genesis, the N64, the SNES and NES app, like, it is a nice library of games that we are continuing to see added into the service, as once upon a time Nintendo went a full 6 months without even mentioning, acknowledging, or doing any kind of updates to these older emulators that have been on there the entire time since the original launch of the service. And a lot of us felt like in the Nintendo fan community that they've just all forgotten their base tier subscription users, and really just online play access and cloud saves was going to be the only reason to remain subscribed to that tier of the service. And now, as somebody who is subscribed to the expansion pack, I have 4 different consoles that I can rotate out new classic games. Now hopefully they are not just throwaway bottom of the barrel games. There's definitely still some quality titles that we could see added into these libraries. Whether or not Nintendo pays for the licensing rights that they need to access some of them, well, that remains to be seen. But I do think that with their large subscriber base, maybe it's time to start paying some of the checks to get some of the classics that are still missing. On the NES, you have games like Final Fantasy, Bionic Commando, the original Metal Gear. Like, yeah, there's going to be some red tape around getting all of those on there in terms of licensing holders and paying people off, but I think that, you know, some of the classic titles that are still missing need to make it over. Super NES, I have a huge library of games that I would love to see make it over. Chrono Trigger, of course, we're still missing Super Mario RPG and The Legend of the Seven Stars, which is also going to be a Square Enix licensing thing, but Nintendo can't afford the check, in my opinion, to continue to add value to that service and bring over a classic RPG that fans have been asking for since the launch of the SNES app. I don't know if you guys played the old SNES Mickey Mouse games, but all of those were excellent action platformers in my opinion, and I really enjoyed my time going through those games, and I'd be happy to do it again. DuckTales and Goof Troop, also super nostalgic for me. And then the 3 Star Wars games on the SNES, while being ridiculously challenging, were also ones that I enjoy and could still boot up to this game and have legitimate fun with. And then don't even get me started on the Mega Man NES games, and of course Mega Man X on the SNES, 1 through 3 being heavily nostalgic for me. Now, we might not see major banger titles as part of this update, so I'm not going to go in with the highest expectations out there, but I am pumped that we are at least getting continued support for 4 different consoles somewhat regularly. Yes, there's no roadmap. When will the next NES and SNES updates hit after this? No telling for sure, but if you start to look at their pattern, it is like every month, every other month, they're basically just picking a different application to update and add in games to. And then we're also seeing that consistency of 1 new N64 game added in without fail so far since they've started adding in additional games. We know that the June game should be Pokemon Snap, unless they throw some kind of curveball, because of course that's the last announced N64 game. And then after that, we're in the month of the Nintendo Direct, that of course we should be able to expect an update for the future of the roadmap. And if we're super lucky, we may get additional systems added in that will also start seeing support, like your Game Boy family of systems. Although I personally am putting my money on the September Direct to see anything like that announced. I feel like E3, or what would have been E3 Direct, is just too soon to reveal it when they're still just barely in the infancy of adding in their N64 library to the service. But definitely be on the lookout later on this evening for the updates to officially hit. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your overall thoughts and feelings on Nintendo Switch Online over over the course of time, as Nintendo clearly was dropping the ball at one point with the service, and I am definitely feeling like they are starting to pick that ball back up and run with it now. And then definitely share with me which games you are hoping we will see announced for the SNES and SNES later on today, and also make sure you share your thoughts with me around Zelda Breath of the Wild and that surprise altered cutscene that was just now discovered 5 years later. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do want to hear from you guys in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss a very surprising leak that hit around potential plans for Sony and Microsoft to be working on the Pro models of their PS5 and Xbox Series X, and why they could be slated for release as soon as 2023, and a discussion on where Nintendo and their more powerful hardware could fit into that conversation. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.